This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 12th of September 2019, and I am 2J.
I am JM.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are.
Yes.
In the Star, RAILA plans to overhaul ODM ahead of 2022. In the Standard, 25,000 public servants risk the sack in jobs crisis. And in the Daily Nation, anxiety ahead of grade 3 test next week. Should we begin with the Standard?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here, Jaguar, otherwise known as Charles Jaguar, is proposing that we reduce the retirement age from
60 to 50.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think it's a fantastic idea.
So do I.
Yeah, I think it's alarming at first, but I think when you actually think about it, it's a great...
Isn't 50 too young to retire? I mean, I'm just trying to think of...
People shouldn't be encouraged to work too long. Right? let me give a little sermonette,
Yes.
as is my tradition on Thursdays.
Cue the organs.
Right? There's a difference between job and work, right? As was distinguished by one of my, somebody I admire greatly, a guy called Dr. Miles Monroe, the late. And he said, a job is what prepares you for work, right? So a job, for example, is what you're paid to do.
Yes.
But work is what you were born to do. A job is temporary, but work is permanent. A job is what you learn. Work is what you're born with. It's your gift. A job you can retire from, but work you will do almost forever until you die, right?
Wow.
And a job is what pays you a salary,
Yes.
but work is what gives you wealth.
Wow.
Now, the idea in life is to transition from job to work.
Okay,
Right?
so you think after 50 they should be able to transition and do
Precisely.
meaningful, inspirational
Precisely.
things?
Now, the sermon wouldn't be a sermon without a verse.
Hey.
So,
Can we cue a second organ?
so all this is drawn from Proverbs chapter 18, verse 16,
Yes.
which says, a man's gift maketh room for him in the world.
Okay.
Right? So we all have a gift.
Yeah.
And if you stay in employment too long,
You won't build
then
the
you
gift.
won't build the gift. You won't
Yeah,
find
that
it.
is true. My only worry is knowing government workers and public service is lowering the age means that people will start to rent seek a little bit more. So
Yeah.
if I know that I have to leave by 50, it means I have to
At
build my
49,
house.
yeah.
I have to do all these things, and that's how you find people engaging in corruption and whatnot. I don't know, but I
if
really
we-
like your
if we
thoughts on...
compare what we see in the
Yeah.
West, maybe.
Yes.
So European civil servants, they just increased the age of retirement to 66.
Wow.
And I think the highest is about 70.
So they're doing the complete
They're doing the
opposite of
complete
what we've
opposite,
done.
but
Why is that?
they have a reason for that. They're reflecting the aging population. There are a lot of old people in Europe. They're not having, a lot more kids as they used to.
Yes,
Yeah.
And also they're reflecting the increase in life expectancy.
Oh,
So I
okay.
think if we look at Africa, we said this yesterday, 60% of Africa is under the age of 25.
Yeah.
I think if we get these guys out at 50, that is
Yeah.
opening the door for a lot of young
As
people
well.
to fill in those
Well,
spaces.
I hope young people
Absolutely.
actually want to join government, because the way it's looking now,
We can only hope.
Only to previously who says government is for extraction and therefore, but
It's true.
let's see what happens.
I think
Let's
it's an interesting story.
Yeah, and let's see
Yeah.
if it actually passes.
Passes.
through.
That is also
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, is it a good headline?
I think we shuffle
I
for a
have
bit.
I have a criteria.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Give it to us.
We have a 3-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves whether it is topical or speculative, whether it is repetitive or groundbreaking, and whether it is effective or just plain lazy.
I think it's
Or
a topical headline,
I think it is.
but I think it's too early
But-
to tell until, as
Precisely.
you said, it passes.
Passes through
So
parliament.
until we know
Yeah,
more,
yeah.
we'll
We'll
toss
toss it. In the Star, RAILA plans to overhaul ODM ahead of 2022.
Yes.
This handshake has done wonders for
RAILA.
RAILA.
It has.
This has been beneficial to you.
One of the things we must commend RAILA for
Yes.
is being consistent, building this party from the ground up.
Yeah.
And, he's done a phenomenal job. He's
Yeah.
invested his time, his effort, his resources into it.
Yeah.
And,
And he
you know-
established ODM when?
In 2005. And in fact, by the way, do you know that Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were founding members?
Oh, interesting.
Of ODM.
Right, yes.
Interesting.
Right? So this
they're
is going to
coming
be one of his
together now.
legacies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's phenomenal.
And I like
But-
what he's doing, because listen, it's one of the more established parties. He didn't
Yes.
dismantle it like other people did when
Exactly.
they formed Jubilee.
Yeah.
And so I commend him.
And that's what we need in this
You
country.
form a vehicle to achieve what you want, like NASA, when it this guy,
you dump it.
you move on. And
Move on.
I like that he's establishing, a permanent premise, everything.
The only question I would have is that in the Star they said that they are the only party to own their premises. Do Jubilee own their premises on Thika Road?
Kindly comment, let us know.
Maybe if you have answers, tell us.
I don't know if this deserved to be a headline though.
Oh no, I don't
Yeah.
think it did.
Yeah.
I think it's a slow news day.
Absolutely.
So we toss.
Let's toss it.
that.
And then in the
Fantastic.
Daily Nation, there is anxiety ahead of grade 3 tests next week. Grade 3 are our age 9.
Nines.
Yeah, they're about 9 years old. So what's
Yeah,
happening
9
is
to
that this
10.
is the first national exam that is happening under the CBC.
Yes.
And so the teachers are anxious, and I think the students as well, because they have to foot the cost of printing all the exam papers
Yeah.
and then thereafter inputting them into some kind of portal. So I think unlike KCPE, where the government foots that bill,
yeah.
the teachers are anxious because they have to do that
And
now.
we've been saying that CBC has been, it's going to be expensive
Yeah.
to implement, and the cost is on the schools
On the
themselves,
schools, yeah,
right?
it
so,
is.
But you know what? My thing with Kenyan schools is, are we teaching kids to sit exams or to critically think about stuff?
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to them
Yeah.
testing early. Given that that's how you monitor progress.
Yeah.
So maybe they're testing at the beginning and then see
Yeah,
whether
like a
CBC
baseline,
works.
yeah. But I think this goes
Precisely.
back to the question. The teachers were saying that they wanted more training ahead of the implementation
Yes,
of CBC. So I think
yes.
this is proving some of their worries.
Yeah.
But we keep saying here, you should implement an imperfect plan
Violently.
violently.
Yeah, it'll
So-
work itself out.
Yeah.
With
Here
the
you go.
Kings. I think this might give us our winning headline.
I agree. I think it's lifting the veil of ignorance. I
Yes.
think it's making us ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
Is it fair to give 9-year-olds a
Exams.
national exam?
Yeah.
Are we making them worry unnecessarily?
Yeah.
I think it's
Should we give it to them?
Yes,
Yes.
give it time. Daily Nation gives us our winning headlines.
fantastic.
And onto our political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. We also have a 3-part criteria that we use. We ask ourselves whether the cartoon is humorous or dry, whether it is satirical or pessimistic, and whether it is effective or just plain lazy.
Gado,
Okay.
what's happening? There's a very strange obsession with coffins we have going on. This is the third one this week.
So what you've got here is what he's titled is The Curse of Brexit. And I think he's doing a flashback from maybe his own cartoon, I don't know, from 2016 and then 2019, and you've got Thatcher in the coffin with one eye out. This is really weird. And then 2016 was May and Boris in 2019, and Thatcher has her hand stretched out.
Almost like
giving
a touch
blessing.
of death.
A touch of death, yeah.
I don't know.
But Gato, are you okay?
Yeah, I think this is
We keep having coffins.
Yeah.
Morbid, is in a morbid mood.
Yeah. his-
Call us. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the idea here is that Margaret Thatcher also had her foray with the EU. She was a skeptic,
Yeah.
and it also didn't bode well for her when.
When she was PM,
Yeah.
Let me just comment about what's happening in Britain right now. Boris is a gambler, right? He suspended Parliament 3 days ago.
Yes.
Right? And he doesn't know how this is going to work out. But the idea is that by 31st of October, Britain is supposed to leave the EU.
Yep.
Yes.
And he is saying, right, with or without a deal,
We're leaving.
we are leaving the
Yeah.
EU.
But I think he
And
owes
so-
it to
and-
the British to get a good deal.
And so he suspended Parliament so that the people who want a deal don't get an extension
Yeah.
of that.
Okay.
Right? So
Yeah,
that's this is part of the gambling. I think that's what Gado is speaking
Yeah,
to.
yeah. But I don't
But-
think it is very relevant to us as Kenyans today.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
don't
So-
think he'll survive it either.
Yeah, I think we
All right,
toss
all
that
right.
very
I
quickly.
think he's going to survive it. But
His own
time
brother
will tell.
quit Parliament.
Time will tell.
If your family doesn't support you, what do you have?
What
So
do we
with
have
the
here?
Daily Nation, Ndula has put us back on the soccer pitch, and Mariga has his cute Jubilee outfit, shorts, but he's playing football with no shoes on, and he's kicking a ball into the goal that looks like a ballot box. And behind there is Kalwale, Bonnie Kalwale, saying, "Great own goal." If Tulem was here, he would be giving the
An accent, yeah.
But I think the idea here is that ever since he was removed off the,
Yeah, the certificate was
Yeah.
invalidated, yeah.
he has
Guys,
I don't think this is a big
I don't
cartoon.
feel inspired by this
I'm not
cartoon
feeling
at
I
it.
all.
also think he has Mariga has more troubles, because if they find out that his ID was indeed faked,
Yeah, they're going to be
so that he could
strictly
be
investigated.
abroad, I mean that's more problems for him. If I were him, I would just retreat. Politics, ikona wenyewe.
I just think this cartoon took too much effort to understand, and that's not the point.
We toss it,
Okay.
absolutely.
And finally,
And finally,
Ozone.
And finally, Ozone has given us a really interesting cartoon here.
KIBRA Derby.
The KIBRA Derby, right? And so we've got 4 political, bigwigs. MUDAVADI on a donkey. Now, MUDAVADI here is a jockey. A jockey is the guy who's on the horse, supposed to be riding it, and he's really overweight. So this donkey is not going to move. And then you've got RAILA there, who's pretty much in the lead. He looks very fit.
Good form, yeah.
In good form, 40 kgs, which is the recommended weight for a jockey, by the way.
That.
Yeah. So he looks like he's just gonna sweep through it and.
But why does
victory.
RAILA's horse have a face on it? Oh, they both have faces.
Yeah,
okay,
2 horses have faces.
Okay, that's a cost.
And then Ruto is here on Mariga.
A dead horse.
Dead horse. And then the funniest really has got to be Kalonzo, who is on a toy horse, a rocking horse. Can you imagine?
I'm going nowhere.
Going nowhere.
Guys, I love these moments when Ozone surprises me. I feel I'm very proud of him today. I feel like a proud parent.
Yes, and the polo is actually on this weekend.
So it's very
topical,
very well matched.
Well.
Yeah,
precisely.
I think it's quite
hilarious.
funny. Yeah, we're having Ruto here on a dead horse.
Yeah.
And I want to give him some unsolicited advice.
Who are you giving unsolicited?
To Ruto.
Okay, awesome.
To his dead horse Mariga, and this comes from the dead horse theory. So it's believed that when you discover you're riding a dead horse, the best strategy is to dismount.
Okay.
However, through history, and it is still happening now, we see businesses, education, and government finding alternative strategies to deal with a dead horse. So I'm just going to give him 4 pieces of advice with his dead horse.
What he can do.
He could buy a stronger whip, so beat the horse harder. He could appoint a committee to study the horse. He could lower the standards so that the dead horse can be included in the race. I don't know if that's a possibility anymore. He could do a productivity study to see if lighter riders could improve the dead horse's performance.
Wow.
And lastly, he could promote the dead horse to a supervisory position to hire another horse. I think the last one is maybe what he might do.
But what I also like is that...
those are good recommendations.
Yeah, Ozone is sort of also getting us to see the death of NASA in some ways. If Kalonzo is fielding a candidate, MUDAVADI does as well, they're no longer leaving KIBRA space as holy grail for RAILA. So interesting, thought-provoking.
I think this is a fantastic cartoon.
I think Ozone has given us our winning cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah, this is great.
Fantastic.
So what is our final thought?
And now, our final thought. Inspired by a book entitled The Bad Samaritans, The Myth of Free Trade and the Secret History of Capitalism. It is written by the author, he's called Ha-Joon Chang. It was written in 2007. So this is actually quite an old book, but I think it still holds truth. So Chang is a South Korean economist, and he's currently teaching economics and development studies at the University of Oxford and the University of Cambridge. So he's a smart one. In this book, he argues that the governments of rich countries are imposing development policies on poor countries that are not only misguided, but they in fact forget the history of how the West got rich themselves. So, like the Good Samaritans in the book of Luke, the rich want to help the poor. They want to do good. But unfortunately, they don't see that they are making things worse. And that is why he calls them bad Samaritans. They have good intentions, but they end up making things worse. And so the main point of this book, I think the takeaway, is that Western ideology has overtaken history. The policies that took the West forward all those years ago are now forbidden. So when you look at things like protectionism, you're not allowed to do that anymore, or rather it's illegal.
Now it's all about free trade.
Exactly. And so he says that they are kicking down the ladder that they use themselves to climb to success. So Kicking Down the Ladder is actually another book that he wrote, and in that book he talks about how the West climbed this ladder to success. And once they got to the top, they looked down at the poor, and then they kicked the ladder down and they said, figure it out yourselves. And so examples of this are like the Britain wool economy. So the industry was built on high taxation. They put high taxation on imports and on exports. And the purpose was to ensure that the infant industry of the British wool economy would thrive. And now, as I said, that is an illegal thing to do. So he says that protectionism, which is shielding domestic industries from foreign competitors, is frowned upon by the West, the IMF, the UN, and the World Bank. And it's essentially very necessary for the early stages of development. And so I'll just give a quick quote he says in the book. The history of capitalism has been so totally rewritten that many in the rich world do not see the historical double standards involved in recommending free trade and the free market to the developing world.
Absolutely. So let me just pick up on that and talk about two things in particular. Free trade and the principle of comparative advantage, which are preached to us African countries, for
Constantly.
example, which really hold us back, right? And so he gives a pretty compelling illustration in the book. And he says, imagine you've got a 6-year-old child. Right?
Yeah.
You could do one of two things. You could either send him out to the job market, which was a fairly common practice in the 18th century, for example, or even in a lot of African countries today, you still have child labor, right? And or you could nurture him, protect him for about 22, 24 years, give him an education, give him some, love, give him some socialization, food, and then after that's done, then you release him to the job market. Right? Now, if you release him to the job market at about 6 years old, the most he's going to be is a shoe shiner, is an errand boy, and that's because low level, because he doesn't have any skills.
That's true,
right? But the argument there for the people who say that you should send your 6-year-old to the job market is that if you protect him too much, he becomes lazy, he becomes complacent, he becomes spoiled, right? However, if after 22, 24 years you send him out, right, he will have developed a very high-profile skill set, and he will go on to secure a good job, become something great and earn a lot of money. And so he says, African countries, for example,
we're the 6-year-olds.
We are the 6-year-olds.
Yeah,
right?
we were sent out into the job market.
This is the ideology that is preached to us. So our 6-year-old economies have to compete with a 400-year-old British economy on the same terms.
Is it any wonder that we're struggling?
Going to work? Precisely, right? And this is a story of Toyota, and that's another example that he gives, right? Did you know that Toyota started out as a manufacturer of textile machinery, only moving into vehicle production in 1933? Did you know that the government of Japan kicked out General Motors and Ford Motor Company in 1939 to offer Toyota an exclusive market in Japan? They only invited American automobile companies back in 1980.
Once Toyota was established.
Right? And did you know also that the government of Japan bailed out Toyota 2 or 3 times over? Right. So these are the benefits of protectionism, right? That he makes. And I'll just finish with a quote. And he says, today, Japanese cars are considered as natural as Scottish whiskey or French wine. But less than 50 years ago, most Japanese people, and a lot of people across the world, thought the Japanese car industry should not exist.
And now, what do they say? The car in front
is always a Toyota.
It's always a Toyota. So you can imagine if protectionism didn't happen, where would Toyota be?
Exactly.
Nowhere.
And you're right. Free markets and that neoliberal approach has a way of reinforcing the developed economies to keep doing what they do and do it well. But then we are encouraged to sort of just keep being low production.
Precisely.
Send out
keep
goods.
plugging teeth.
Send raw material.
I think the thing I picked out as well from Hajun Chang was the cultural thing. So they say that the Chinese miracle or the East Asian miracles, the Japanese, they all got successful, because they had cultural innate qualities, such as being hardworking, being loyal, and all that stuff. Except for, so what his argument then is that they didn't actually get successful. I mean, they didn't get successful by having those cultural habits. Those cultural habits came as a subsequent result of doing industry and productive things
in the economy.
So, for instance, Japanese companies had a lot of loyalty programs, so you were employed for life. So obviously it inculcated some loyalty traits in you because you knew you always had a job. And they had welfare schemes tied to you for life, so you are loyal to a T. So his argument is Africans are often seen as lazy. And he says this, he puts this into context for us when he talks about what used to be known as Korean time. So Koreans were late for 2 hours, and then they wouldn't even apologize. But as the more industrialized they got, that went away.
And so now it is known as African time.
Now I remember that we have African time that people can show up 2 hours late and whatnot. But his argument there is that because we do rudimentary tasks, because our production is very, it's not time-based, it's low level, we don't have that industrial time.
And in fact, on that, he says, he refutes the Muzungu argument that Africans are poor because they're lazy. He says we are lazy, but that is because we are poor.
Exactly.
Right? And it reminds me of another book we have mentioned before, Why Nations Fail. Don't read it, don't buy it. Because in this book, the core argument is that cultural and geographical things are the reason that we are poor. So it's hot in Africa, therefore we are lazy, therefore we are poor. You know, and all these, it's very racist, and I think it's very stereotypical. And I think
it has very racist overtones. But he says we can flip that. He says that it doesn't have to be that way, and that the more we develop, the more cultural habits and habits that we get for manufacturing and all that help us with our businesses, our lives. With the Chinese, we had shared prosperity, so it helps in the end.
But the community.
Precisely.
So.
I would be remiss if I did not mention that this is the show that I host every Wednesday, known as the Bad Samaritans, and we extensively discuss this book in the context of Kenyan politics and Kenyan economics. Right? So please tune in Wednesdays to hear more about this very interesting discussions.
Jerem, I'm actually a fan of the show. So on a day that we had a winning cartoon from the Star and a winning headline from the Daily Nation, I want to say to you this. When the facts change, you change your mind. And a famous economist told us this, right? And it is our moral duty to learn from experience and from those of other countries. So that the Bad Samaritans will tell you to do what is easy, but not necessarily what is right. So as Africa, as Kenya, we need to figure out what is right.
Precisely.
Agreed. So have a good evening. I urge you to subscribe to our channel and also to look for us on TV. We're on Pan Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times.